guys, welcome to True Set Free. We're coming to you live from Calvary Chapel, Tri-Cities. If you have questions, you can email this behind me, crosswalkradio@gmail.com. Text me 707-872-7677. If you're tuning in on Facebook or YouTube, just post your question or your praise report on there, and we'll try and get to you. Let us know where you're watching from. It's cool to see where you guys are tuning in from. It's kind of around the world right now, and so that's really neat to see. I don't have a whole lot of announcements for you guys that are local, but if you get on our website, there's a ton of stuff going on. What I mean by that is we have Tim Hawkins thing and women's self-defense things, all the stuff going on. But for major ministry, I will tell you we're doing a children's ministry conference. If for some reason you haven't heard about this, it's actually February 13th. So coming up quick, but you can get online if you're interested in that. It's anyone that's going to be going into doing children's ministry or interested. It encompasses the whole realm. So anything children's ministry, check it out. It's going to be a good one. If you don't know, we have an app. You guys can download that. That's a good way to keep up with us. And then we're doing actually a weekly email now that you guys can sign up to get updates from events that are going on and just things that we're doing. The other big one right now is we're doing Upward Soccer. It's kind of full, starting to fill up if it's not already full, but get on our website, check that out. And it's not on my slide, but it's going to be a big one. I want to say it's K through 8th grade, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. You got anything, or are you ready to jump in here?
Yep, jump in.
Let's do it. All right, my first question says this, Pastor Steve, can you explain Matthew 5:31 and 32, ? And then they say, if I marry someone who has been divorced, I'm committing adultery, ?
Okay. This is what the passage says. It says, furthermore, it's been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. And, Jesus expounded on that in Matthew chapter 19. And what he's talking about is a divorce that takes place between two believers needs to have a biblical reason for the divorce. And so if you look at Matthew chapter 19, it says the Pharisees also came to him in verse 3, testing him and saying to him, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? That's called no-fault divorce. That's what we've got in the United States. And he answered and said to them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. So the first thing that Jesus does when he's talking about the whole divorce issue is he defines what a marriage is, and then he says that this is something that was ordained by God. And if God has brought two people together, then men are not supposed to be separating them, including the man who is the husband and the woman who is the wife. And so marriage is to be sacred. They go on and say to him, why then did Moses command to give a certificate of divorce and to put her away? And they're referring to Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. And Jesus says, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery, and whoever marries her who is divorced commits adultery, saying pretty much the same thing that you see in Matthew chapter 5 there. And so the one of the reasons for divorce scripturally is if somebody has committed sexual immorality. And sexual immorality in Greek in that passage is porneia, and it includes all types of sexual immorality. It's not just talking about an adulterous relationship. Well, it is an adulterous relationship no matter what. But porneia is a term that isn't confined to adultery. It's a term that includes bestiality, it includes incest, it's anything that breaks the marriage vows, is the point there. And so There's a reason for that, because in the Bible, in the Old Testament, if you broke those marriage vows, you were put to death in the Old Testament. And so there's no records of that actually, that sin actually getting the death penalty as far as in the Bible. But that's what it was. It was a death penalty for that. And so when you get to New Testament times, specifically the times of Jesus, the Jews were not allowed to exercise the death penalty. And so Jesus is giving the right to divorce in that instance. And so that's why it's there. The point that Jesus is making in the passage is that we need to keep marriage sacred, and that if we're out getting unscriptural divorces, then what that ends up being is an adulterous relationship. And so I'm not going to minimize what the word says there. A lot of times, because of the culture that we come from, the culture that we're involved in, Christians compromise the standard and the passages, and the standard is the standard. And so I'm not going to dismiss that whole thing. When you go over to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, this is something that we talk about pretty routinely. But in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, it gives another reason for divorce, and it's abandonment by an unbeliever. So specifically, it talks about if two people are divorced and they've gotten a divorce for unscriptural reasons, then what's supposed to be happening in that situation is they're to remain unmarried or be reconciled to their husband or wife. He says in the passage, it's in verse 11, even if she does depart, and it's talking about divorce, let her remain unmarried. Obviously, that's how you know it's talking about divorce, or be reconciled to her husband, and a husband is not to divorce his wife. But then he goes on and he speaks about an issue where an unbeliever is willing to live with a believer, and at that point you're not to divorce them if they're willing to live with you. But if the unbeliever is unwilling to live with a believer, not with somebody who's a believer that isn't acting like a believer, it's a real believer, right? And the reason I'm saying that is because all kinds of unbelievers are willing to live with you as long as you don't report them for being a drug dealer, or report them for being a bank robber. Of course they'll live with you. But if you're actually acting like a Christian and you're living a Christian life, then a lot of unbelievers start making choices at that point. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've actually run into people who've been in those kinds of situations and didn't know what to do. And so in any case, it says that if an unbeliever is not willing to live with a believer, then you're to let them depart, and you're under peace at that point. And so it's another reason for biblical divorce is abandonment by an unbeliever. And so those are the reasons. So it's death is how you get out of a marriage, or a situation where there's been sexual immorality and the marriage vows have been broken, or the abandonment of an unbeliever.
So in the world we live in today, where a lot of people are coming into this looking for a reason or an approval by the Bible to get a divorce, a lot of times it's because she's unreasonable, he's a jerk, and they don't want to be married anymore. Mm-hmm. Why to answer like the world's answer of psychology that you deserve to be happy, and if you're unhappy, then you shouldn't be in a marriage relationship that puts you in that situation? Scripture never paints that point. Like you mentioned, it says there's only two ways out of this. Marriage is a serious thing. From a Christianity standpoint, why stay into a marriage where two people perceive to be unhappy and not just split? What would the reason for that be?
Well, first off, we need to take marriage seriously.